Hello everyone, this is Mr. Trudy. This video will be about verbs, so first conjugation verbs, as well as your present active system of endings in Latin. We will simply call those the personal endings for the time being. So a quick introduction to verbs. In Latin, verbs have four principal parts. The first part, voco here, is our first singular present active indicative. For now, just first singular present form. The second principal part would be vocare, and we call that second principal part our infinitive. The third principal part is vocavi, which is the first singular perfect form, and then vocatus is the perfect passive participle. For much of the first semester, we will only be working with the first two principal parts, which are the principal parts which are concerned with the present system in Latin. So voco, vocare. We'll come to vocavi, vocatus sometime later on in the year. But if you want to know what they are your perfect forms. So with verbs, you have four conjugations in Latin. Remember, with nouns, you have declensions. There are 5 of them. With verbs, you have conjugations, and they are 4. What determines a conjugation is the vowel you have in your infinitive right here. So the first conjugation is known as your long A conjugation. Now, when we are forming our verb forms, it's very similar to first declension nouns. You look at your parts and you take off certain endings and then you add certain endings. So same concept, we just call it conjugation. The first principal part of a verb, voco, is our first singular present. And just like our nominative singular with first declensions, it goes into our first box here. So that's our first singular form for the verb. We'll come back to translation here in a second. Now, once you are outside of your first singular, you have to go to your second principal part, and to get what we call the present stem of a verb, you take off the re ending. This is your infinitive ending. To get the present stem of any verb, you go to your second principal part and take off that re, and you will have your present stem. So your present stem of voco, vocare is voca. Okay. Now, just like with declension, you can go through your boxes here and fill it in with your stem. And you've already guessed what you do next is you add certain endings onto the stem, and then you have your completed forms. Now, the ending you add on to your second singular form for your personal ending is an S. So we have vocas. For third singular, you add a T. So we have vocat. For first plural, you add mus on. So we have vocamus. And then for second plural, you add vocatis. And for third plural, you add an NT, so vocant. So your forms would be voco, vocas, vocat, vocamus, vocatus, vocant. Now, coming to translation, these forms here are present active forms in Latin and in English. Now, when it comes to Latin verbs, what you can think of it as is, instead of using pronouns, Latin will have the pronoun built into its ending. So this O ending here is actually I, so to speak. The S would be you in the singular. The T would be he, she, or it. The mus would be we. The tis would be you all. And then the third plural ending, nt, is they. So instead of having separate pronouns, most often, Latin simply indicates it by endings. Okay? So when we come to translate the form woko for the present, by far the most common translation would be I call. However, there are different translations. You can translate this as. The remaining two use what are called helping verbs. Most often in English, tenses will be indicated by using helping verbs. Latin usually does not use helping verbs. They will use infixes and tense markers, and we will come to that. So you can also translate woko as I am calling, or I do call. So any of those three translations would be a possible translation for woko. As I mentioned, your most common would be I call. And when we come down to wokas, remember that S ending is the pronoun you, essentially, in English. So we have you call, or you are calling, or you do call. So once you have the pattern down, you simply follow that pattern, just like with nouns. So for wokat, the T ending is he, she, or it. You tell whether it is a he, she, or an it based off of your subject in the sentence. So we have he, she, or it calls. He, she, or it is calling. Or he, she, or it does call. Coming to wokamus, your mus ending is like the we pronoun in English, so first plural. So we call, we are calling, or we do call. Our second plural is you all. Since it's plural, it simply means you are addressing more than one person. So wokas would be addressed to one person, wokatis, more than one. And we translate that in English, you all call, you all are calling, or you all do call. Coming down to our final form here, wokant, that nt is the pronoun they in English. So we have they call, they are calling, and hopefully you can see it down here, they do call. Now, with any verb, once you have this pattern down, you follow the exact same steps and add the exact same endings for your present active form. So with any verb, you go to your second principal part, take off the RE to get your stem, fill in your first box here with your first principal part, use the stem for the rest, and add the appropriate personal endings.